Prenzlauer Berg is a locality of Berlin, forming the southern part of the borough of Pankow. Until 2001, Prenzlauer Berg was itself a borough of Berlin. In that year it was merged into the borough of Pankow. After German reunification in 1990, Prenzlauer Berg became a center for the more bohemian Berlin youth, while more recently it has experienced gentrification. Geography: Prenzlauer Berg is a portion of the Pankow district in northeast Berlin. On the west and southwest it borders Mitte, on the south Friedrichshain-Kreuzberg, on the east Lichtenberg, and on the north Weinz and Pankow. Geologically, the district lies entirely on the Barnum glacial deposit and borders from the southwest on the Berlin Glacier Valley, which was formed in the Ice Age. The highest point of the district is 91 meters above sea level in the northwest of Volkspark Prenzlauer Berg. This hill came into being after World War II, created from one of the debris piles after the gathering of rubble from the city center and the subsequent rebuilding. Cityscape: Prenzlauer Berg is characterized by old buildings, the majority of which come from the turn of the 20th century. Over 80% of all housing in this area was constructed before 1948, with the oldest building still standing being from 1848 at 77 Kastanienallee. In the Second World War, relatively few buildings were destroyed in comparison to other areas of the city. The area was neglected in the time of the German Democratic Republic, and the last ruins were cleared away only at the beginning of the 1970s. After the fall of the Berlin Wall and subsequent German reunification, the dilapidated structures in many areas were rehabilitated, and since the middle of the 1980s empty lots have been closed up. Today, Prenzlauer Berg forms a nearly homogeneous historic building area. Over 300 buildings remain protected as historic monuments, like the municipal swimming pool at Oderberger Straße and the breweries on Müllerstraße and Nachstraße. The central area is characterized by restaurants and bars. The typical Berlin cuisine concentrates especially on Kastanien all around Kollwitzplatz and Helmholtzplatz. The center for nightlife is the region around the U-Bahn station Eberswalder Straße at the intersections of Schöparagrafenhauser Allee, Danziger Straße, Eberswalder Straße, Kastanienallee and Pappelallee. These intersections and the surrounding area are called Ich Schöparagrafenhauser. This older Berlin appellation was used as the title for the DEFA film from 1957 and thereby became generally known. Under the U-Bahn arches at Schöparagrafenhauser Corner, Young Germany meets daily. Adults subject to the group of adolescents, the beatniks, without asking why they seek their freedom on the streets. With regard to urban planning, the district affords a relatively uniform picture. It is predominantly characterized by 5-story, multiple dwelling units in closed blocks. Thanks to the long property lots, the blocks, more often than not, are very large and have abundant backyards, some having a perimeter of more than a kilometer. Notable buildings are the large churches of the district, of which Jethse Main Church of Augustorf at Stager de Straße is the best known. Its 66-meter steeple is exceeded by the 79 meters of the steeple of Segundskirche und Schöparagrafenhauser Allee and the 68-meter steeple of Immanuelkirche and Prenzlauer Allee. Also, the representative school buildings planned by Ludwig Ernst Emil Hoffmann stand out in the area. The largest synagogue in Germany is that on Reicherstraße. Construction began at the end of 1903 and it was dedicated on September 4, 1904. The building escaped the November pogrom in 1938, for the synagogue was tightly surrounded by residential buildings. The synagogue was desecrated and confiscated in April 1940. In July 1945 it reopened for services, underwent several renovations and on the occasion of its 100th anniversary it was restored to its original splendor. In the Jewish cemetery on Schöparagrafenhauser Allee, opened in 1827, there are more than 22,500 graves and 750 family tombs, including the graves of David Friedler Kurrenzinder, Max Liebermann, Leopold Ullstein, Ludwig Bamberger, Eduard Lasker and Giacomo Mabir. A landmark in Prenzlauer Berg is the former water tower Thickhermann at Reicherstraße corner of Nachstraße from the year 1877, which was the first water tower in Berlin. Another remarkable building is the Zeisgruppe Planetarium on Prenzlauer Allee, opened in 1987. In the west of the district, north of the Friedrich Ludwig Jahn Sport Park, is Mauer Park. This public green area was left when the area of the primary freight station was seized for the building of the Berlin Wall between Nachkreuz and Benower Straße. Thus, for 40 years any other use was prohibited. History: Prenzlauer Berg was developed during the second half of the 19th century based on an urban planning design from 1862 by James Hebrecht, the so-called Hebrecht Plan for Berlin. Prenzlauer Berg was part of what became known as the Wilhelmine Ring with a primarily working-class population. After World War II its tenement houses were mainly inhabited by intellectuals, artists, and students in the former German Democratic Republic. Since German reunification, Prenzlauer Berg's urban apartment block structures have, for the most part, been renovated. This and rising property values have led to more affluent residents moving into some areas of the borough. Older buildings like the Water Tower, near Kollwitzplatz, or the Prater Beer Garden in Kastanienallee, as well as the old breweries still give an impression of the days when Prenzlauer Berg was part of so-called Steinern's Berlin as described by author Werner Heckmann in 1930. Prenzlauer Berg today. Countless pubs, restaurants, cafés, copyright s, galleries and little shops create a day and night life atmosphere unique from the rest of Berlin. Along with Schauparagraph Neuberg, Paragraph LLN and Mitte, Prenzlauer Berg is a focal point of the Berlin art scene. Along with Friedrichshain, Paragraph LLN and Kreuzberg it is also a popular neighborhood with a student population. However, in recent years, popularity has caused the rent to rise, resulting in an exodus of students to cheaper neighborhoods. 2007 German journalist Henning Suabge coined Biennale, a German neologism combining Biennale and the word Biedermeier, an era in Middle Europe between 1815 and 1848 to describe Prenzlauer Berg. The term is a German equivalent of for example LOHAS and Bobo and gained some media attention and expanded use since. Prenzlauer Berg is one of the most popular districts in Berlin, is one of Berlin's prettiest neighborhoods, still central, yet quieter than Berlin Mitte. Unlike most of Berlin, much of Prenzlauer Berg escaped damage in the Second World War and post-war redevelopment, and the area is thus still replete with cobblestone streets and rows of original ornate buildings from around 1900. Nowadays Prenzlauer Berg offers trendy shopping with many street-style fashion designers selling their wares in its boutiques. Prenzlauer Berg has become famous for being one of the few places in Germany where there has actually been a baby boom in recent years. There is an abundance of playgrounds, Helmholtzplatz, Kollwitzplatz, Kitas and shops selling toys and second-hand children's clothing. However, the birth rate is not higher than elsewhere in Germany. Instead, the impression of a high number of children is based on the large percentage of people between 20 and 40 years who are potential parents of young children. Prenzlauer Berg has recently become a popular area for the current wave of American, Australian and European immigrants into Berlin, many of whom are artists who have moved to Berlin in search of the cheap downtown apartments and studio space which are very hard to find in other capital cities and centers for the arts like New York, London and Paris but which are abundant in Berlin. Conversations in English can often be heard in the street cafes along the Kastanienallee. Even today many artists choose Prenzlauer Berg as their residence. Olaf Nicolai and Cornelia Schlimme, the comic strip artist Flix, the musician and frontman of Tokotronic, Dirk von Lotso, the singer and songwriter of Rammstein, Till Lindemann, the artist Heike Makach, Katharina Wackenagel, David Bennett, Daniel Bra 1/4 HL, August Dale, Kurt Kra Paragraph Mehr and Matthias Schwer Paragrapher, the musician and composer Christian Lillinger, the filmmaker Tom Tykwer and Andreas Wiye, the playwright Rena Copyright Pelesh, the writer Florian Illes, Vladimir Kamena-Dittel-Fopiers, the moderators Alfred Barlek, Sarah Kuttner, Sandra Meshpka and Benjamin T. Wargaz. Well as the director Christoph Schlingengief, who died in 2010. Kollwitzplatz and Helmholtzplatz have weekly street markets, and the former breweries Kulturbrauerei, Pfiffberg and Kastanienallee are the hotspots of interest. Places of interest: Gethsemane Church, former meeting place of the resistance in the GDR, Helmholtzplatz and Kollwitzplatz on market days, Jewish cemetery on Schaparagrafenhauser Allee, where painter Max Liebermann and composer Giacomo Mabir are buried, Mauerpark, Reichsstraße Synagogue, Wasserturm Prenzlauer Berg, designed by Henry Gill, constructed by the English Waterworks Company and finished in 1875. References. External links, TIC Berlin, tourist and historical information about Prenzlauer Berg, Prenzlauer Bergistim, Prenzlauer Berg Nachrichten, BBC article about the baby boom in Prenzlauer Berg, Herald Tribune article about Berlin and Prenzlauer Berg.